What are we going to talk about? This is, by the way, already the intro. Hi, my name is Jason Cammisa, and he is Derek Tam-Scott, and this is episode number
70
of the
Carmudgeon Show,
which is
part of
the
Haggerty
Podcast Network. Do you think?
In this episode, we clap.
Yay! Applause.
And then we discuss the best sounding noises, car cylinder count engines, street cars.
Did you just vomit grammar all over
Those are
me?
all, no, that was the absence of grammar, but it was a lot of words. Car noises. We talk about car noises. We talk about, we get a van update, of course, because what Carmudgeon episode would be complete without a van update from Jason. And I briefly mention that I've purchased a new car, and then we talk about the GV70.
The Lexus GV60 and the Lexus LS400, the original one.
Yes.
But I think we come to a pretty clear agreement on what the best sounding car ever made is.
It's road car?
Road car.
Yeah. I would, yeah, sure. We can call it that. Should we talk about what cars those are going to be? I guess it's going to be, no, it's in the title and the thumbnail.
They already
presumably.
seen it. Don't waste
Porsche,
your words.
Carrera GT, and Lexus LFA. The end. Are you recording? Mm-hmm. Oh, fuck.
That's how we started the episode. Are you recording? Oh, fuck. That's it. You found it, okay? Mark that. And we're back. Are you done eating outer space? Were you just going to say from outer space?
No.
Oh, because then we could have gone back to the old Carmudgeon style where I sing.
Singing.
Just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon your face.
Should have changed the locks.
I should have made you leave your key.
Instead, you're sitting there.
If I'd have known for just 1 second, you'd be back to bother me. You're not supposed to drink.
I mean, yeah, you're doing a great job. Carry on. Welcome to... we already did that.
Yeah. This is a large coffee, and I'm waiting for it to kick in, which means I might need a bathroom break.
So this episode's going to be 6 minutes.
I'm not awake yet. God, why are we doing these so early?
I don't know. Why are we doing these so early?
Because I have too much other crap to do. I just got back from a shoot where the new Caravan made its first appearance.
Does it appear in the shoot?
No, it appeared at the shoot.
At the shoot.
At the shoot. So if those of you keeping track, I bought a 2019 Dodge Grand Caravan. It's from Detroit, so it has to be said Grand.
I bought something new recently too. But first, finish your story.
Way to hijack my Caravan.
No. Tell us about the Caravan. We all are deeply invested in the Caravan on Trofeo R's or whatever they thought.
Well, that's right. I brought it up the last time that you can't get really good aggressive
AS4s.
Yeah, you can't get really good tires on the 17. So I bought a set of 18s, and they fit, which was funny because I've never had a car before where you go to Tire Rack or you go to like the internet and ask, "Hey, do these wheels fit?" and not get an answer. But apparently, no one does wheel upgrades on Dodge Grand Caravans, and they did change bolt pattern at some point in the last couple of years, and then they became fleet only, and so there's just no resources for this van, which is very strange.
You are adding genuine value to the internet community
by telling
people that what upgrades fit.
Chrysler Pacifica wheels fit. They're a different offset and they're a different width and whatever, and so Dodge Tire Rack does have like you can buy an aftermarket wheel kind of a deal thing, and it shows that there's one wheel out of like the 20 that are available that will fit both a Pacifica and a Grand Caravan. And I'm like, okay, well, that's proof positive. I'll just buy them. So I bought the wheels. I plastic them because you can't have bright wheels and reflecting in cars. It's a camera car. And Michelin sent over a set of Pilot Sport all-season 4s.
Very good tires, those.
They're really good. This is my first experience with AS4s.
Are they quiet?
So I have AS3 Pluses on my mom's Golf that I used for that range test. And so we're just kind of going through that, and I'll do a follow-up post on those. They're amazing because they break away like all seasons, but they grip 1.0 G on a Golf, on an e-Golf. And so I get these tires on, and I'd picked up the van from the AC shop because it needed an expansion valve for the rear air conditioning because they have 2 zones of air conditioning because luxury. And I flung it into this on-ramp, which I fling a lot of cars in. There's a lot of room to gather it up. And I thought, nothing's going to happen. I almost hit the inside curb because I thought it was going to slide. And it didn't. And you know, like when you get new tires, they have the mold release compound on them, and they're always a little bit slick.
Slippy, and they're like, be gentle for the first 50 miles.
Right. And they always have like full tread depth, so a little bit squirrely and squishy. None of that. And I'm like, so this is going to be totally fine. Threw it right the fuck into the corner. And one of the other, so I had the old 17s in the back that were all lying flat. So I figured I can just do whatever I want, and it's not going to be an issue. It generated so much G-force in my van that one of them lifted themselves up and slammed into the side of the fucking cargo room and made quite an imprint in the very, very hard plastic. Holy shit, the grip. So the complaint from the camera crew was the seats are no longer supportive enough to deal with the amount of grip. So now you have
to do 6 Recaros.
But I don't think you can get stow and go, flip and fuck
Recaros. Recaros into the cargo.
Well, my response was very simple to Taylor, who was driving the camera car. Just don't go so fast. Like, you don't have to slide around the corners. But the nice thing is the thing can now keep up with sports cars around corners. And then we did, WeatherTech sent a beautiful set, which I'm going to have to get a stock photo because I haven't taken a picture of it yet. A beautiful set of those like indestructible mats, you know, and when it was
laser measured ones or whatever.
Yes. And so when someone else's van, like an Enterprise van that we were wrecking, I didn't really care about the interior, but now I have to clean this thing when we're done. And so I put the WeatherTech mats on and the crew destroyed them. I mean, we're getting out. The van is usually parked on the side of the track. And so they're stepping in dirt and who knows what the fuck else, and they get in and
carcasses of coyotes.
Yeah, well, the carcasses that the coyotes left of all the cats and other small animals they ate. So hose it right out. It's perfect. So the van worked. Let's see how long the transmission lasts. We can start like an internet pool to see how long a 61,000 mile Chrysler transmission lasts.
This is the heritage that joins them to the original Caravans. It has been a persistent Caravan feature since always. Transmission failures, right?
Yeah.
Was that true of the K car-based ones too?
I think so.
It's just been like an ongoing feature.
I'm a little bit nervous.
Got to get the manual turbo.
Yeah, but you can't have a turbo as a camera car because you can't work around the lag.
I was talking about the first generation manual turbo, the world's most collectible minivan.
I know. The problem is, and I would have one as a camera van, but you can't have a turbo because you can't deal with the lag. When you need to accelerate, you need to accelerate now. And so the 2019 Grand Caravan's naturally aspirated 3.6 liter quad cam V6 responds instantly.
Okay.
Anyway, so it worked. We'll see what breaks first. But
this has been the van update.
This is the van update. Also, my van comes standard with a cat.
Catalytic converter or like meow?
No, I have a really cute video of a cat I'll show you later, but you guys can see it now. Just a question. Does your camera van come standard with a pussycat? Because mine does. We stayed in an Airbnb for this last shoot, and there was a cat that lived there outside, and anytime you opened a car door, he just ran in and was like, oh, what's this? Is this something cool to explore? Didn't pee or anything. He was really cute, young kitten, and he was cleaning himself on the dashboard. Like, I look over and I'm like, my van has a pussycat in it.
Okay.
So anyway.
You should name him and make him like your mascot.
Call him Town and Country or something.
No, you wish it was a Town and Country. That's the aspirational name for the cat.
Yeah. He's just Voyager. Womp womp.
Oh, DL with the plastic, the bare plastic door handles.
It's not DL. It's an SXT.
No, I know. It's not a Hyundai.
I think Honda. No,
DX is what I'm thinking.
That was
for
Honda.
Honda for the black bumpered and
DL was like an AMC Pacer.
Oh, really?
But that meant deluxe, and they meant it. That got wood paneling. Oh. Sorry, wood paneling.
Wood tone.
Well,
that's what
wood plastic.
That's what they would always call wood tone when it's fake wood. Mm-hmm. That's an early John Davis Motor Week terminology, which I always thought was amusing. Wood tone.
Wood tone. So we have wood tone and Corinthian leather.
Yes.
Fine Corinthian leather.
Yes.
Fine Corinthian leather. If you guys don't know that, you should really look that up because that was wonderful.
We talk about it with some regularity. Regular watchers should Ricardo Montalban. I mean, it's like it's a well-known internet icon.
For people who are you like 94 and old and know things that happened in the 70s.
Yes.
Holy shit!
Well done.
Thank you. I just threw my coffee
from
cup
behind the 3-point line.
Definitely, that might have been a 5-point line. Anyway, today we're here to talk about. I don't know. Hold on. You told me off record off camera, whatever it's called, that you bought another car and you're buying another car and you won't tell me what it is.
No, I'll tell you. We just said hold the discussion until the camera is rolling.
So I don't kill you? Is that like?
No, I mean, I don't think so.
I'll kill a bitch on camera.
It is. Are we going to do the Jason Cammisa trick? It's front wheel drive. It is transversely mounted engine.
Okay.
It has a timing belt.
Okay. Cams.
It has a single cam.
Okay.
One carburetor.
A carbed front wheel drive single cam 4-cylinder?
Yes.
Okay. Front wheel drive. Is it French?
Yes.
Is it Citroen CX?
Fuck. Yes.
Damn, I should play on Jeopardy or some shit.
Yeah.
Why? Pourquoi?
You'll see. I think that I think you'll hate it because it has no steering feel by design.
That's not necessary on a Citroen. Does they have hydropneumatic
suspensions?
Steering?
Yeah, steering and suspension. Yeah. Well, yes. It has the Duravi steering, which is when you let go of the steering wheel, it returns to center by itself.
Even at a stop.
So
weird.
It's very weird.
Does it have the pulse back brake button?
Yes, it does that as well.
So yeah, on all the Citroen hydropneumatic cars, when you touch the brake pedal, it gives you a kickback as soon as you put any pressure on it.
There's also the travel on the brake pedals, probably like that much.
Is it even that much?
Maybe I guess less. It's probably less.
In most situations, it's a pressure situation, not so you modulate brake activation with pressure, not with travel.
Yes,
which is fun. That will scare the shit out of me.
You've driven an SM or
no? I drove a Maserati Bora. And a Deus, same thing. But Bora has a real pedal that presses up against the button, right? Was that what it was? I think it was.
Yes. So you get whereas the DS has a little mushroom that comes out of the floor. Right? This has a regular hanging pedal, so it's more like the Maserati.
Okay, so
but you've driven a DS.
I've driven a DS.
Okay, it's going to be very similar.
That's so cool. I don't need steering feel when you have that level of French fuckery.
Well. So I don't know when it'll arrive. It's on the other coast right now and it's getting a service. So it'll come out here eventually and then you can experience it.
What year is this? Pièce de magnifique.
It is 1979.
79. Something
also known
89.
as 6019.
Yes, if you're French. Or 1989 if you're an Anglophone. Right?
79.
79. Yes, I'm sorry, 79.
It's 60 plus 19.
60 plus 19. Cool. My French is, c'est terrible.
Well,
on peut parler en français because for this whole episode.
No, not this one.
Not this
the
one.
Avec the CX. If you want to,
that's true. Okay,
make an episode about it.
So you've purchased this or intend to?
Yes, I will be buying it.
Okay,
we reached terms.
For the record, the reason that I guessed it very quickly was because you posted something you hide nothing.
Yes,
you're constantly posting.
But I wasn't shopping for a car this is always how it works. Buying cars accidentally.
Isn't that old standard orange colored sky? See, you'll notice this is I was walking along, minding my business.
When out of the orange colored sky,
flash,
bang, alakazam.
Wonderful, you came by, and that's
Yes, cars. I mean, now I never have to shop for a car; they find me instead.
Okay.
But yeah, it's great. We'll discuss it more at length after you've experienced it in person.
I can't wait. I'm genuinely excited about this.
Yes. Okay.
Paolo is too. Look, he's asleep.
Please hide your excitement more.
No, I like weird things. That's why we're friends.
Yes, it is a car that is. It is for. I don't know. Someone who's seen all. It's like going to. It's like kink, right? You just after you need something progressively weirder to what.
Wow. Okay. So now we
this
just learned a little bit too much about this episode is sponsored by like whipsandchains.com or something.
The world's largest manufacturer. We should get an oil company. Never mind. This episode has a topic, and it's none of these topics, we have discussed. It is... So you have an upcoming episode on this? Is this right? Is this how this happened recently?
So. I don't remember yes, but I did just spend time with a Carrera GT and a Lexus LFA, which are, in my estimation, 2 of the 5 best sounding cars of all time.
Interesting.
And we're going to discuss what the other three are because I'm really curious to see what you have to say.
About what the other three best-sounding cars are?
Yep. Sorry, it's not a F355.
No, not from my standpoint. I mean, it's got to be some kind of really nasty V6, and that would mean either a Busso or a Ferrari. One of those.
I think
that... I know.
Really?
I think
that's where you go, V6, when we're talking the best-sounding engines of all time.
It's just something that I really like. We've talked about the Busso at length. The Ferrari, like Dino V6s in the race cars, like 206s.
Yeah, but I'm talking street cars.
Okay, fine. All right.
But although that Busso clip that we published a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
a couple
147 or whatever it was.
Shit.
Yeah, so those are magnificent. I mean, let's see what else. Street car, you say?
Mm-hmm. Like production road car.
I mean, what is the... Oh, TVR Speed 6.
Really?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay. You're going straight for the 6 cylinders? I thought you were going to go for way more cylinder count.
Okay, so what's the best 12-cylinder car?
Aventador.
Think so?
Without question. Here's the thing about the Aventador. It's got this...
I can identify one always when I hear one in the distance.
Strangely, me too. And it's I call it a square wave exhaust note. And I don't know why I call it that. And I have no idea what that fucking means. But it just sounds very different. It's a
little more guttural.
Yeah.
It sounds displacement-y because it's a little deeper.
Yeah. But it's got inside the car. This is the big letdown on Aventadors. That sounds like absolute garbage.
You got to drive a Roadster with the little window down.
Yeah. But that's sad. But it sounds so good on the outside that I'm still going to put it on the list of the top 5 without question. But that's probably the best sounding V12.
That's the best sounding V12?
It's pretty...
But what about all the people who like ripping noises? Well, it's not a real rippy motor.
It's a yelling motor. So ripping motor...
that's like when you hear
Ferrari
those...
812.
Yeah, or when you hear the Mercedes V12s with the equal length headers on them.
If we were allowed to say
car.
if we were allowed to say modified, then that opens up that category to the W220 with a 3 valve.
Oh, 3 valve.
I think they sound actually
the 3 valves sound better than 4 valves.
There's a sweeterness to the one. Look, I've never heard one in person.
I'm used to hearing those turbocharged because almost all of those are turbocharged. They were only naturally aspirated for like a couple years, I think, until 2003.
Didn't we make a deal when we were both at ISSIMI that we were going to buy a 140 with a naturally aspirated
and have the exhaust system made? Yeah, because we have someone and a contact in Italy who's like, I could get one of those made for you.
Can we get them to sponsor this episode and give us? This episode is sponsored by someone who can make us equal length headers for a Mercedes V12 that we do not need.
Yeah,
but that really noise of those things.
Okay, so that's
that's
if modified.
Modified, then you open the door to VR6s because out of the box they sound amazing, but when you modify them, they sound holy shit. Then it's world class, but that doesn't count. So out of the box, the 599 GTO was Ferrari's first 6-into-1 header. On that V12, which then became the F12, which became the A12, and that's up there with the with that Lamborghini Aventador. What other V12 sound that good? McLaren F1.
Yes, those are great.
Inside and out.
Great. Yes,
I haven't been in one.
A lot of induction noise inside, which is nice. Wonderful.
300 SL gull wing.
Yes.
If we're going 6 cylinders.
Yes, but it's a little bit of one trick pony.
There's going to be a lot of video inserts.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
It's a little bit of one trick pony in that it's just a wall of induction noise, and like the mechanical noise of the car is like not that remarkable. Like at idle, those cars sound a little bit like tractory. I don't mind it.
To me, the best part about a 300 SL is when you're on it, you get that ridiculous, genuinely deafening induction noise, and it sounds amazing. But it's the harmonics of all of the other mechanical stuff in normal driving that makes it sound so amazing. So when you're driving, just kind of keeping up with traffic and that sort of 1,000 to 3,000 RPM sweep, you get the gear noise.
All old cars are like that, though. But not most old cars.
Right, but then most of them don't add that psychopathic induction noise. Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Another 6-cylinder would be
S20?
A Nissan S20.
Oh, were you literally about to say that? That was just what I was.
That's top 5 best sounding engines of all time for me.
I agree. S20s, which is funny because the cars don't usually feel that fast.
They're so slow.
And then, I mean, it's a very peaky motor. Mm-hmm. So you have to rev the piss out of it to go anywhere, which is great. You get to listen to it.
Nothing below $5,000, and then it's from 50. I wrote once, and I loved this line: from 5,000 to 7,500, it's cocaine and wasabi. Yeah, which would be quite a painful mixture.
Okay, so that's inline sixes,
V8s.
V8s.
You're going to say nothing with a flat pan crank.
Yeah, I am. That's true. I don't dislike it, but to me, the beauty of a V8 is like you want the sort of like. The uncivilizedness of it, and so then it's like, okay, it's got to be like a 427. Although there's
that's the muscle car soundtrack.
What car am I thinking of that? I mean, like Maserati V8s, the quad cams.
Yep. Like
in a Quattroporte one. That's not.
Oh, I was thinking Quattroporte 4 or 5. The US car.
That's
that
yes, and you get that in an Alpha 8C.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds very good in an Alpha 8C, but also the old quad cam motor that was there. I mean, they used it in every damn car they made basically for like a 30-year period, including the Quattroporte 1 and Quattroporte 3. And
for the record, there were 60 Quattroportes 2 or 16 or something, some ridiculous.
The twos, yes.
The twos, yeah.
Didn't really there were like 6 of them or something, and they are basically long SMs, Citroen SMs.
Right.
So those were
which had a V6 that
V6s.
is not on this,
No,
not on this list.
They're not terrible. Other like great V8s, sure. I mean, have you ever heard this is a race car, so I guess it doesn't count. But the M119, the Sauber C9 M119, it's interesting because all the other Group C cars that are running around, well, you either have like Mazda 787s, which are just like
insane.
Insane rotary noises, or you have like Porsches and stuff like that, and then you have the Sauber C9. Which is like a big V8 noise, and you hear it on. I'll see if I can find this as an insert, but those are really cool to hear in a Group C context because everything else is like very high pitched and racy, and those things sound like big honking V8s. Okay, so what's your contender for V8s?
I think I could probably, I don't know which one I would pick, one of the small blocks. GM small blocks have where Mopars tend to be filthy, it's a dirty sound. GM small blocks make this music in the mid-range from the 3,000 to 4,000 RPM that no other V8s do. Especially now.
You're talking about the modern,
the modern stuff,
LSs.
the LS. And so they're great at idle because they're great startup bark, and then that blah, 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 idle that you want, and then just all this music, and then they scream. So GM small block is up there for me, and the fact that they're reliable and cheap and easy, and just they're the best V8 in the world. I'm trying to think of other V8s in Germany.
Yeah, I mean, they've got all the sophisticated like quad cam, dual overhead cam, 32 valve.
Exactly.
Jobbies.
Hyundai's Tau V8 of all things, right? I mean, it's quiet. It's in the luxury cars, whatever. Holy fuck, the noise that made. And it reminded me of the Lexus V8 So that's like in the LC500, which is
just like among the world's last remaining car naturally aspirated V8s that exist.
But with all this said, I think there's, and then obviously 4-cylinder goes to Honda. I mean, take your pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the way
of the twin cam Hondas.
Yeah, I love the way my VW 16 valve sound. It's a really pleasant, nice sound, but no contest.
And then you get the like Abarth thing, which is muffled by a turbocharger and nothing else. It
sounds best at idle. Yes. Idle to 2,000 RPM,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
But the Honda, the B18 C4, no, it was a K20A that was in that Series 1 Lotus Elise that we giggled together in.
Yes. And a good spicy Lampredi Twin Cam 4, naturally aspirated.
Yeah.
In like a 131, for example.
190 Cosworth. That was a good sounding engine.
Yeah.
All intake and mechanical, no exhaust.
But actually a genuinely good sounding engine. It's one of the most present motors that you can get in a Mercedes in the last 30, 40 years. 40, I guess it is.
I think even the V8s are less outspoken in all the AMG stuff in the car than a 2316.
Yeah.
It really
dominates. Was quite a surprise for me was how much induction noise there is in that car.
And that makes it into the cabin too.
Yes.
Which is kind of strange. All right. So we've done all this, but
we skipped 5 and 10 cylinders.
Yeah, you save the best for last.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a musician. So we have a drag race coming up. That's I don't know if I should tell you all the secrets, but whatever. It's all 5 and 10 cylinders, and I titled the script "The Best Sounding Drag Race of All Time." So we had an Audi RS3, which is the last remaining 5-cylinder production gasoline engine. I think couldn't find another one.
Yeah, Volkswagen and Volvo have all shit canned them.
Mm-hmm. Mercedes doesn't have anything anymore. I looked
for a long time.
Yeah, I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find another production gasoline 5-cylinder or diesel for that record. But that RS5 sounds pretty good. And then we brought along an old original Audi 220 valve turbo quattro.
Not original. Well, it's the second.
Yes, the last of them. So that was one of the last versions.
The only 20 valve.
Right. Last versions of the first ever. Do you realize that the Audi 5-cylinder was the first production gasoline 5-cylinder ever made?
And that would have come out in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yes, early 80s.
In 10 valve form.
And right before that was the first production 5-cylinder diesel ever made.
Mercedes the OM617.
Guess who did both of those?
Ferdinand Piech, of course. And let us tease the Piech episode once again and then pass over this without doing it.
I kind of feel like at this point, the last episode we ever do needs to be the Piech-isode. Piech-isode? What do we call it? Piech-isode. Yeah, because we've been teasing this for 3 years now?
Maybe longer.
How long are we doing this, Bond? 70 episodes? Who knows?
I don't know. Aren't there people who are like in the hundreds and I'm just like, I don't.
Thousands. I want to say Driving While Awesome is in like 2,500 zone and.
No.
Just some outrageous number. And then Matt Farah's in the millions at this point, hundreds of millions. So interestingly enough, the Audi was the first gasoline 5-cylinder, and they're now making the last 5-cylinder gas engine. The 200 was basically the final version of that first ever. And then
with a 10 valve head. Well 20 valve. Mm-hmm. But then that motor, so that's the 3B, and then the AAN, which is substantially the same motor, went into the C4, S4, and the RS2, and the S2, and...
Same basic engine.
Yes.
Right? Just different engine management and detail changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we had a CGT and an LFA, because V10s, which are two inline 5s running simultaneously.
Yeah. And leaving out Gallardo. Gallardo doesn't stack against those two, I suppose.
Not against those two, but Gallardo had an even fire V10 at the 5-liter V10 at the beginning and an odd fire V10 at the end. So I was doing some research trying to figure out exactly, and I hope there are some musicians in here who scream at me in the comments. Please don't scream. I'm musically illiterate. It's the strangest thing. I play piano. I played my whole childhood, and I sort of faked my way through all the lessons and fooled everyone, and no one realized I'm musically illiterate. I can sound it out. You see someone who's basically illiterate. If they're reading text, they can sound out a word, and that's how I am with music. I see the notes and I'm like, every good boy does F, fine. It's so terrible. But I was trying to figure out what it is about 5-cylinder engines that sound so different than anything else. And, it's a harmony. What we're looking at is a harmonic, right? So, if you go from a 1-cylinder, if you have a base mechanical noise running at the speed of the engine, and then you have one that's running 12 times more quickly, that is, the cylinder's firing, that's a V12, that it winds up being an octave. So you have an engine that is making two notes that are a full octave apart, and you can play with them from there. And obviously there are other modifying factors. A 6-cylinder car would be half of that, half an octave, and a 3-cylinder car would be half of that. The only one that's outside of that is a 5-cylinder, which is a perfect fifth. And a perfect fifth would be is 5 notes. Is the difference between twinkle and little. Twinkle, twinkle. No, it's twinkle and twinkle. Anyway, 5-cylinders are harmonizing with themselves is basically what we're having. So you have a perfect fifth or a perfect 10th and a perfect 10th on top of that for V10. And that's why they have this sort of haunting musical note it's never discordant, because other than an octave or half an octave, the most common interval that you'll see in music is a fifth. And so I really wish I had, one day I'll do an Icons episode on a V10 or a 5-cylinder, and then really have time to dig down into this and interview some music and acoustic people, because I find this so fascinating. But there's no mistaking a 5 or 10 for anything else.
That is 100% true.
Yeah, whereas sometimes you can hear a flat plane V8 and think for a second, oh, is that a 12? No, it's a V8.
A flat plane V8 to me sounds like a 4-cylinder.
I mean, it is technically 2 4-cylinders running simultaneously. And so, for example, 308 GT4 sounds just like a 4-cylinder. In the car, it sounds a little bit different because it's double the amount of background weird stuff that doesn't come through on video. But yeah, they are very much 4-cylinder. And in that, a V10 is 2 5-cylinders. So you could conceivably fool someone into thinking you're in a V10 when you're in a 5-cylinder, just not, telling, I'm only revving it out to 5,000 RPM.
Best sounding 5-cylinders.
There aren't all that many.
Yeah, there's not that many. You have the Volvo and the Volkswagen and a bunch of Audis.
There was a VR5 too, don't forget. Yeah.
So it's a 2 on one side and 3 on the other?
VR6 with 1 cylinder lopped off, and so you get that same guttural on top of a 5-cylinder noise.
What car did that go in?
Vento, Bora. So
not in the U.S.
Not in the U.S.
I've never heard this thing.
They sound like a 5-cylinder. The Audi 5-cylinder has a burble to it.
And all the spicy ones that you always think of as iconic are all turbocharged. Yeah. There's never a naturally aspirated version of those things. Is there?
I have to pick my nose. I think you're gonna have to cut that. Sorry. Sorry, you're gonna have to cut that, pal. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. All of you said something.
They're all turbocharged. All the Audi exhaust noises that you're used to hearing that are iconic are all turbocharged because they never made a spicy, naturally aspirated.
Yeah, true. Even VW didn't when they put the 5-cylinder in the Mark Vs. Interesting. Yeah, that was NA, but it was 170 horsepower.
So it's like when you hear the rally cars, or when they put that motor in Trans Am and then they put it in IMSA also. All those cars are all turbocharged, and those are 10 valve ones too. Almost all of them. Yeah, all of them, because
the 20 valve was one of those times where the engine didn't sound worse when you put more valves in it. Often they do. There's a smoothness that you typically get from 2 valve per cylinder, relatively low compression cars.
I mean, to me, just like sitting around listening to Group B, or when they ran the 200 in Trans Am, is just like, it's the best.
leaving puddles. They sound really good. But so the contest really comes down to LFA versus CGT. For me, from outside the car, they are pretty damn close. So you've driven both also. To me, so
there's no contest in reality when you interact with the two cars.
Well, we'll tell them. Don't.
Everybody knows this, I think.
No,
I think this is widely known information. You've definitely said it before.
Okay, but most people don't drive, and this was the first time even I had driven them back to back, which was really telling.
But the thing is that the difference is so stark, you don't have to drive them back to back.
Okay, so let's start from the outside, because so the Lexus V10 is a 72-degree bank angle with perfectly even firing cylinders and equal length headers.
What is 72 times 5?
I don't know.
360.
360. Yeah, it's fucking early. I only had that one coffee. Also, suck at math. Anyway, yes. So that is a perfectly even firing order car. So it should be smoother than the Carrera GT.
Which is how many?
68 degrees. I looked everywhere. I cannot find any documentation on the CGT's motor to find out whether it has offset crank pins. Because you can offset. That's a very small, 72 is where the engine wants to be. It's 68. So you would have 4 degrees on either side. So you have a total of 8-degree offset between the. Did I do that right? Yes, between the cylinders, between the throws of the pistons. And I can't find a single picture anywhere on the internet of a Carrera GT crankshaft. I can't find any documentations. There's in the parts diagram, Porsche's parts diagram. There's a drawing, and there's no line where there would be for a split crank pin. So I can only assume that the CGT's engine is actually slightly odd firing. Now, again, 4 degrees is not a huge amount, but it's enough that it should give the car a little bit more complexity into its exhaust note. So if you hear, for example, sorry, we're going to have to do an insert on this, the difference between an even fire 5-liter Lamborghini motor and a 5.2, we'll play it now. That 5-liter is smoother to me. It's just a happier noise, and the 5.2 is a little bit discordant, which adds complexities and resonances in it. I actually like the even fire one a little bit better, and I expected that from CGT. So I expect the LFA to be a perfect, and then the CGT to be like, more guttural. It's the other way around.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you know that. You've heard them both from the outside.
I have heard them more from the inside than the outside.
What a twat. All right. So from the outside, it's the other way around. And I think the reason why is what Anthony, my right-hand man on all the productions we do, he and I call a kazoo effect. So like the M4 GTS had this, last gen M4 GTS, where you hear the bass engine sound coming out of the exhaust, but actually you're listening to the muffler as a resonance box.
Yes.
The walls of the muffler are actually resonating. And there's a lot of tuning that went into the LFA's exhaust. And I think that's what you're hearing is the exhaust itself, the outside walls of the muffler resonating with the engine and creating a secondary
It would
rasp.
surprise me to not at all. Well, yes, the intake is.
We haven't gotten there yet. Paolo, down. Good boy.
So yes, that the character, that the net result of all that to me is the.
Thank God Paolo's laughing. Didn't come over here and bite me. By the way, Paolo's a dog.
Yes, that's the thing
we've
been hiding all this time is that it's just me and Jason.
Listen, we have to fill. We really only supposed to make these podcasts half an hour, but they always want to be an hour. We have to fill it with banter. We could have just started the episode by saying, "Well, it's better sounding." So sorry. He's got to edit the shit. No, he's got a vested interest in making this shorter. I see what he's doing. He just wants us to fast forward to the end.
Yes, right.
Anyhow.
So, unsurprisingly, because of the role of Yamaha in the development of the noises that come out of the LFA, it's just much more musical and sort of coherent and cleaner. It's like how can I explain this? It's
perfectly tuned piano or violin versus one that's just not.
That just is existing. And there's an intentionality to it, and the result is very clean. It feels clean to me in a way that and very minimalist almost. There's everything that is there is the music, and there's no extraneous junk that's not contributing to music.
Dolby noise reduction C.
Sure.
you remember DNR? Do you remember Dolby Noise Reduction on your cassette player?
Oh, no.
Do you know what a cassette is?
Yes. I have many cassettes.
Okay.
I actually bought a Blaupunkt cassette player yesterday for my new car.
Okay, so what Dolby Noise Reduction did was when you were recording with Dolby Noise Reduction on, it would boost the frequencies that were most likely to have noise. Like, for example, the treble that got all the hiss on tapes. That was the problem. And it would boost the treble tremendously. And then when you played it back, it would cut that back down to where it was supposed to be. And that would mask the hiss. And so that's basically what I think you're explaining what Lexus did was they just minimized all of the noises you didn't want and really amplified the stuff you did. Whereas the impression you get listening to the Porsche is or knowing how they engineered that car. They were like,
the car performs beautifully.
Yeah, it's a fucking Le Mans engine. Throw it in and shut up.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I loved getting the two cars together. Realized that I think there's an 800 pound weight difference between the two of them. It's massive.
Really?
500 pounds.
Yeah, in favor of the Carrera GT.
Yeah, 3,200 pounds versus 3,700 pounds. 37 and change. 38. It was a lot. Either way. Yeah, the CGT sounds just ridiculous.
Ready. Driver's ready.
We are ready. So good. But it only revs to 8,500.
Only.
Well, the LFA revs to 96. Well, it's kind of hard to get there because the transmission doesn't want to let you do it. But the limiter is 9,600.
Jesus.
And so you have that, that perfect even firing interval with equal length headers and then 9,600 or 95 or 9,000 or whatever it is. So we're getting to the meat.
Not to mention
in the car, you say there's absolutely no contest. And if we disagree about this, we're going to have to pause the episode, beat the shit out of each other and come back.
There's no way. There's only one answer here. Like a person without ear holes. No. There's no way. There's only one answer here. Like a person without ear holes maybe would conclude that the Carrera GT sounds better, but every other person should conclude decisively, without question, even if it's been 5 years since you last drove a Carrera GT, you drive an LFA and you're just like, this is the best sounding noise that has ever been put inside of a car.
I totally wanted to disagree with you just so we could have a fight on the air. But there's no.
Yeah, but I would have to return my car enthusiast card if I felt otherwise.
Yeah, there is absolutely no contest.
It's a little. I mean, it's the inside of a Carrera GT is a little bit like gravelly and dump trucky and like industrial process sounding.
If I would go that far. Wow, I think Paolo just passed out over there.
If you like rev it at idle or something like that, it's just noise. The
crazy thing about the CGT is from outside it's
really?
And then inside it's you're like that's 8,000. That's 8,000 again. It doesn't. Yeah.
It's good. And if you hadn't experienced an LFA, then you'd be like, it's very good.
Yeah.
But then you experience the LFA, and it's like people make this. I'm not much of a drinker, but people make this comparison with alcohol, where if, like the difference between cheap alcohol and expensive alcohol
is that hangover.
No, well, yes, but in this case, it's like sort of the distilledness, right? All you're getting is the purity and none of the like junk. And that's like I said this already about the car, but there's a sort of cleanness to the noise of the LFA, which is just makes it unreal. It is.
It does actually seem unreal in that it's too perfect. If I had one criticism of it, it's a little bit too perfect.
Yeah, too smooth, too devoid of texture.
However, it doesn't matter when you're listening to it.
Yeah.
It's also multiple octaves lower than the exhaust. Same sort of situation. It's much, much lower, but it's probably twice the frequency of.
It apparently also depends where you're sitting in the car. You've heard.
Really?
Well, So what they do is by design, they put holes in the firewall to transmit certain frequencies. And then they made the whole airbox is made like it's a resonant chamber with actually these ribs in it that get excited at certain frequencies that create the noises
mine were all
at the number of hertz that human ears like to hear. And so they designed it like you would design a guitar or a violin, which is that it's a space that has sound bouncing around in it, and then it's transmitting those into the car. And they transmit the high frequency ones at like head ear level, and then the lower frequency ones were piped into the footwells so that you would get lower frequencies coming from lower in the car. You didn't
I need to
cover this?
No, I need to borrow your book. You have the book. I don't.
No, it's actually in a video.
Oh.
In a documentary video. Anyway, they have all these diagrams of all this happening, but it's all designed. I mean, the whole car is designed as a musical instrument, effectively, and that's just the intake part.
That's why it's so heavy. It's actually piano components.
Yes, there's actually a grand piano inside, which you cannot see. But
with the guy playing it, I'm playing a perfect fifth and a perfect tenth at the same time.
So. Yeah, the intentionality and the thoughtfulness, and that's the thing to me that makes the LFA so special, is that every aspect of the car was designed in that way, with that level of intentionality and that type of attention to detail to the experience. And it's really representative of the Japanese philosophy about doing most things, about whether that's tea ceremonies or whatever. There's just this really intense attention to detail and focus on perfection. And that car is
would you say a relentless pursuit of perfection?
Perhaps.
Sorry.
Perhaps. I bet that was written by some American person too.
Who was sick of dealing with the Japanese relentless
who's
pursuit.
Like, how do I put the annoying nature of the internal memos into a tag phrase?
Yeah, exactly.
Relentless
fucking
pursuit.
Leave us alone. It's good enough. It's a Camry.
And they're like, no, it is not perfect. Yeah. You must continue it until it is perfect. So the LFA really drips with that.
Yeah. I love the way it looks, and but I can't with that transmission.
Yes. I mean, it's garbage. It lets the whole car down. I mean, it is, what is the best thing I can say about it is a relief from perfection.
It is at least now a period thing. Right. So now you go back in time and you're like, okay.
And there's brutality. And brutality has been eliminated in large part from cars. And it is the counterpoint to the complaints that we often make about modern Ferraris or McLarens that are sort of like feeling like video games.
Yeah.
The transmission of the LFA, and it's not just the feelings that it transmits to the occupants, but the noises, like the fact that you can hear all the shift actuators and all that happening, and like it's coming from behind you. You're like, oh, this is definitely a transaxle back there, and there's like someone in there banging about.
That's what always fucks me up when I get in one of these cars, because when you start it and there's more noise coming from behind you than there is front, because it's exhaust that you're hearing. And then you go to engage a gear and you hear the actuators right behind you. And I'm like, okay, mid-engine car. Like my brain says mid-engine car, and then I hit the gas, and all of a sudden the intake noise is coming from the front. I'm so confused. It is genuinely
yes, because there's mechanical components all around you.
Yeah, you're in the violin. You're actually in the little wooden
piano,
thing.
But
whatever it is, I don't care. So it was interesting. This drag race episode we concentrated a bit on sound, so we made our sound guy's life miserable. We did some flybys to see which one's louder. You'll see that in the video. Because loudness is, for better or worse, one of the key points in a car sounding good. It can sound great, but if it's too quiet, it kind of doesn't get people's attention. But we used a Genesis GV60, which is an electric SUV, as a chase car. So my goal is always like, how could we have a drone basically follow a car down the quarter-mile track and always be 25 feet from the exhaust or 30 feet from the exhaust? So you get the full sound without a Doppler effect, so we can cut that in and then, have a fixed microphone at the halfway mark for a Doppler sound. But there's a ton of sound design that goes in these videos, because at the end of the day, if you want the Car Wow experience, you can go to Car Wow and get, a bunch of guys dicking about, and they put 50 GoPros on a camera and go for it. 50 GoPros on a car and go for it. And it's fun, and nothing against them, but we're trying to do something different. And so we're trying to faithfully recreate what you hear and what you experience both inside and outside the car. And that's a lot of work. But this one was fun to watch, the sound guy. So we used a GV60 as a chase card. And it was so fucking funny watching this big white marshmallow shaped, it's gorgeous, but big white marshmallow shaped SUV have to throttle back
Yeah,
to keep.
I was just gonna say, isn't what your
They're about the same speed
your
as the
drag
quarter.
race video? That one just came out a couple weeks ago, and it was like 3 something to 60.
3.7, yeah. 3.73. No, I think that was 3.8, whatever it was.
3.8.
It's fucking fast. And I had that car driving it through LA for a day. And it's got a boost button, which I wish it didn't have. I wish it just gave you full power. But I didn't realize this. The Willow Springs track surface must be grippier than most pieces of normal pavement.
Road noise?
No. It lights up all four. And at 25 mile an hour roll, you're like, oh, I'm going to get that motherfucker. Like you got somebody next to you and you know you have to cut them off before your lane ends. And you hit boost. And as long as you're off the throttle, you get 10, you do 10 seconds when you're on the throttle. And every single time lights up all four and goes. And it's
like
funniest
a Group B
fucking
rally
thing.
car.
It's just complete silence. And people look at you like you've just killed half the population of a small country. I mean, they're just absolute horror on their face.
Unsociable.
Well, they have no idea where the hell it just came from. What is going on? It's a marshmallow that just did a 4-wheel rolling burnout. It is so fucking fast. But it's a perfect chase car for getting sound. It only works up to about 100 miles an hour or so.
Wind and tire noise.
Yeah, wind just becomes an issue. But so we've 5 different ways we collect audio. But we did inside and out. And I will say the iPhone recordings that I made of the inside of the LFA do not do it justice whatsoever. I hope I haven't heard the actual recordings from our sound guy.
We have many too.
Do you? You're going to have to play them. I hope it does it justice because there is nothing like that. Nothing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think no. The answer to that question is no. I mean, maybe a race car of some kind.
I don't know.
It wouldn't be as clean. It wouldn't be as sort of distilled and
the whole idea
polished.
of race car, right? And the whole idea of race cars is always a wonderful fantasy, but not a great reality. Race cars are terrible.
Yes.
When you drive a race car on the street, like that 962 was the best example. Like, we all think, oh, this is race car. Race cars are not about the feeling of them. They're about speed. And often it's miserable.
Yes.
You can't
because
see
you're
out
not
of
using it in the right environment. The right environment is a perfectly smooth track where you're driving it flat out. If you're doing anything other than both of those conditions being met, then it's not a happy camper.
Even that. I mean, the things that are important on the road are just not important on the track. And, horrible vibrations and terrible heat, heat issues in the cabin just don't matter when the only goal is going quickly.
Yes.
And steering
That's why I was so pleased about the F40 because it's not like that. And you think it's going to be.
I need to drive one. I totally need to drive one. I should do a drag race show with that, but who's going to let me do like 8,000 RPM sidestep clutch dumps in their mid-engine turbocharged F40? It's got to be someone. Anyone in the comments, let me know.
Now, for the shameless plug
I've
section.
been offered to use that. It's just abusive on the cars.
Yeah, that's not the right environment.
Yeah, but
for that car, it's not the place to use that car.
Fine, give me a place to use it. I want one.
Yeah,
I want to look at one. I have 288 GTO, same powertrain. I loved that.
Yeah.
It sounded great.
So
that's a flat plane V8 that sounds good, but it's all the turbo noises.
Turbo noises. Yeah.
And I hate turbos,
and that car, I'm okay with it because I'm not feeling like I'm missing that much because I don't like the flat plane noises. So then you add turbo noises and I actually like it better with a turbo because then you get the drama of turbo noises.
Yeah. I agree. On that shoot, for a different episode, we had an original LS400. Have you spent any time in that?
Not in decades. There were probably like 2 of my friends' parents had them when I was a kid. And so I remember the gauges really blowing my mind.
Thank you. Okay, so we have this LS400 here, and it shows up and it's in the garage. So we kept it, we keep all the old cars we keep covered from sun as long as we can. So we're not using them. And at the end of the day, I'm like, did the LS show up? We do 2 or 3 episodes.
Was it like a minty low mileage car?
90,000 miles, between 90 and 100, somewhere around there. And apparently the guy, I didn't interact with his owner at all, but everything that I was told was that he was like the coolest guy in the world. And he had a bunch of them. This one, his dad bought new and then passed away and he's just preserving. So I opened the door of one of the garages and there it is. And I thought it was black, but it's green. It's jade. So it's like it's like basically black with green metallic first gen. It's a 94.
Oh, so late first gen.
Late first gen. And I get in it and I run the key. Okay. So
you had probably the real LFA key.
Yeah.
The carbon one.
Yes.
Because then there's like a little doofy spare key, which looks exactly like the LS400 key.
But the LS400 key looks like a regular Lexus key, but it had the button.
Mm-hmm.
This, like, I have a really hard time explaining to people how much of a fucking mind blow this was in 1990.
Right.
I assume it came out with that. Right. So everyone in the late 80s and early 90s who had remote keyless entry, they were still figuring this technology out. So, for example, Peugeot and Mercedes used infrared.
So did Citroen. I learned that with the CX. So you have to point it at the
point
car
at a
like
thing.
a remote. But in the CX, it's inside the car.
In
So
the
you have to point it
Peugeot is the mirror. It was the
Yeah.
rearview mirror. My mom had a Peugeot 505, and she never used it because in broad sunlight, it didn't work. At night, you can unlock the car from across the fucking planet, but at night, and it was just a kind of an emerging technology. And the remote, remember your 129?
Yeah,
Like,
it's got a switchblade, an early switchblade key.
yeah, they were huge. They were enormous. This Lexus has a normal key fob with a tiny little button on it, and it looks no different than a regular key, but it unlocks it via radio from across the park. It was so brilliant. So I'm like, oh my God, everyone look at the key. And they're all like, and I'm like, look at the size of a modern car key and how bulky and annoying it is. And look at this tiny little dainty thing. And then doink, and they're like, oh shit, that has remote keyless in it. Anyway, and then it was all about the gauges. And I'm like, you don't understand. It's got holograms in it.
And it's like completely black. And then you turn it on and you're just like, I remember like even, I don't know, my dad had like a 2001 Audi A6. And I remember getting into an LS after driving around in that car. And I was like, these gauges are so much cooler than a car that is 10 years newer and like very contemporary.
And it was all because it had a wake up procedure that we'd never seen before.
Yeah, which is now like
De rigueur.
yes, exactly.
To use one of your words.
I was
We're
going
back
to
to the
say
French
that.
car. Were you?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
How would you have pronounced that?
Nice try.
No, seriously. Would you have just said
De rigueur.
But you would do it with a French accent because I feel like that's something you can type. You can be like, and this Citroen has something that is now de rigueur, but I don't know how to say it in English. I don't know if you say
De
those.
rigueur?
De rigueur?
Like rigor mortis? I don't know.
But yeah, so well, obviously we've probably already shown a video insert of this, but the fact that you turn the key and then the needles come on first, then
Yeah,
the
and
gauges
everything's
rise
black.
up. Yeah. But do you know how the holograms work?
No.
I finally figured this out. So in the middle of all of the warning lights are floating 6 inches below the surface of the gauges. So it's this 3D hologram effect, and I never quite figured out how it worked until I started looking. So on the upper hood of the gauge cluster are all these lights, and all it is them reflected. It's reflected in the outer blackout plastic.
Shit.
That's all it is.
Wow.
Fuck, simple genius.
And it just looks like $1 million.
It looked like the future, and it's so weird
Still
to me.
kind of does.
I thought so too, but the whole crew was like, man, they're gauges. And I'm like, get video of this. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, these are genuinely the coolest gauges ever.
Children, and they're used to all the crazy shit we have now.
Anthony's the same age as you are. I don't understand what that, I guess it's you're a couple of years apart. I don't understand
My
it.
spirit age is considerably older.
Yeah. But I think I think the difference is you probably, maybe what the difference is anyways, you experienced them in period and he didn't.
Yes.
They were, I mean, that car was
But even when they were 10 years old, it knocked my socks off when I experienced them when I was in like high school.
Maybe it is now that everything does the dance where lights come on first.
Yeah,
everything
the gauges do the
a full sweep. Yeah, they don't do a sweep on the Lexus, but they do wake up after everything else is done. So the first thing you get is the hologram. You get the needles, the background, the hologram, and then the gas gauge goes thoink and wakes up, and that was amazing. That car is spectacular to this day.
I think dynamically it's not that remarkable, but that's not where the appeal of that car lies.
I can't believe that any V8 powered 250 horsepower car is so fucking slow. I have asked one of our coworkers.
Does it have like a 210 rear end or something?
I think it's an 0.6 to 1 rear end. I asked one of our coworkers who also he's got a 1990 or 90 or 91 LS to send me please an acceleration video because I want to know if something's wrong with this car.
They're like 8.5 seconds, right?
That's what they're saying. But this one, first gear's red line is 52 or 54 miles an hour. And then second is an 80 something mile an hour gear.
It's 4 speeds?
4 speed. And just getting from idle to 4,000 where the engine really wakes up. This is why I kind of wonder if this car maybe has like a valve timing issue or something. was painful. And so we're filming and Anthony's like, all right.
I've never driven one.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, you should. He was like, I need you to run up really quickly. And I'm like, I can't, I'm floored keeping up with the camera car in a straight line. Like this, there's no stunts happening here with this thing. And he's like, he didn't understand it. I'm like, do you understand? I'm fucking trying everything I can. Slow the camera car down. Slow as shit. But as a car, I just couldn't believe. And so to be able to have an LFA and an LS400 on the same day in the same space was just really cool. LFA has also got amazing gauges.
Because the thing moves.
Slidey.
Yeah, the little slidey thing moves.
Had me fooled for so many years. I thought it was two displays.
Oh,
it's just it's just a metal or metallized
you can
plastic thing.
hear the thing moving.
You can watch it move and the screen behind it moves with it, but it's actually just the graphics changing. Mm-hmm. That was genius.
Yeah,
that was the first time we'd seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Was that the first fully digital gauge cluster on a car? I mean,
this is your area of expertise, not mine.
In the day, Lexus certainly made the bullshit argument that they had to go digital because no analog gauge
could keep up with the rate at which it.
Meanwhile, you get into like a 918 Spider, which has less flywheel than that, or a CGT, and the gauge moves as fast as the engine, and the LFA's gauge actually lags behind. So that was one of those marketing departments. Like, people think this is cool, and the engineers
it's
are probably
often
like
repeated lore.
Yeah, and the engineers were probably like, oh god, that's such bullshit. Fine, whatever. But it does have more flywheel than the CGT. Carrera GT is insane. You just touch the gas.
Yes. And then everyone complains about how hard those cars are to drive.
They are not.
I know, you just have to have the right technique. So I had never heard any of that, and I drove one. This is going to say how long ago I drove one. We were asking $220,000 for it.
So that was 50% ago.
Yeah. What?
Well, 100% of its value. How much are they now?
1.2 to 1.8.
That was just my brain exploding.
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing I know this now after I just drove it.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. They're
I thought they were
thoroughly
still
like low mileage, meaning like 500 or less. Those are like $2 million.
Oh my god. Okay. So you drove one they were $250,000.
I drove one we were asking $220 for it. And there was no lore about there. It was just a used car. It was like probably the highest mileage one in existence. It had 18,000 miles on it. And this was in 2010. So the car was like 5 years old. And I just got in it and drove it. And then I was like, I like this car better now that I've driven it. Before I wasn't that enthusiastic about the Carrera GT. And then I drove it and I was like, okay, I like this. I see the appeal. It's exciting. It's an experience. And then I didn't really think about Carrera GTs again for like another decade. And then everybody started like losing it over Carrera GTs in the last 3 or 4 years. And everyone was like, they're so hard to drive. And I was like, I don't have a recollection of it being hard to drive. I drove it the way that I drive every manual car that's not a race car, which is I let the clutch out until things start to happen. And then I add enough gas to keep the revs from exceeding 1,000 or from not stalling and not exceeding 1,000 RPM.
Right.
And the car is perfectly fine and easy to drive if you drive it exactly like that. And when everyone was like, it's hard to drive, I was like, what are you talking about? What are you on about?
The internet says you have to not touch the gas pedal because it has programming built in to allow you to launch that way. I disagree with the internet. I think it has an idle stabilizer circuit that is helping it. And okay, it won't stall, but most modern cars won't stall if you let the clutch out slowly enough. What the problem is, it has so little flywheel that when it stalls, it gives out without a fight. I mean, it goes
just down to zero.
Right. But it's an easy to modulate clutch, and it's one of the best shifters I've ever felt or interacted with in any car, ever. And unlike, for example, like the Ferrari stuff with like an F430 manual has no flywheel. I see you just almost vomited. You did the.
I swallowed it. I swallowed the
Thank
vomit.
you for not spraying me with unsweetened green tea vomit. Those are really, really difficult to drive smoothly, and frankly, a lot of work because the revs drop so quickly that unless you shift as quickly as you possibly can, you'll never catch the revs on the downswing.
Correct. And the shift effort is high enough in those cars that you don't want to slam it through gears. And so it works best for the sort of, I watch sometimes when people drive and they just slam the cars through gears and I die inside when I watch people do that. But that is kind of the most effective way to drive one of those cars. A 430.
Blip it in between the shift.
Yeah, or blip it.
You have to.
Without double clutching, just blip it, rev match it. So yeah, I don't. It's not a very harmonious experience to drive one of those cars. Everybody has, these immense skyscraper-sized erections for those cars, and I like driving.
You got Paolo on this. Jesus, and on that note,
I mean, I will never miss an opportunity to shit on modern Ferraris.
Clearly.
I like
I agree.
F12s, but the experience of driving one of those cars, it never becomes instinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're working around it.
If you spent enough time, maybe it would become instinctive because you would just
accommodate
Stratos. Yourself to it. The car forces you to adapt to it instead of it feeling natural and effortless and harmonious. Like, a modern Porsche GT is great at this, or Miatas are great at this.
A driver's cars, you should never have to drive around anything. They should work with you, and that is one. I did get used to it, so I put a ton of miles on that Stratos.
The blue one, yeah.
And I adore the car. That was one thing that irritated me. But I got over it. You can work around it, but it's not. It's helping.
It's like an old car in the sense that you're like, this is this characteristic the car has, and you just have to
work around it. Yeah, CGT is not like that. It just all works together really, really well. I wish I could interact directly with the engine in an LFA the way that you can in a CGT.
Yeah,
and I think that would be. I mean, what are those things worth now?
Which
LFA?
7.
I think they'd be worth 3 times that if it was a manual.
They made 500 of them
versus how many CGTs?
1270, I think, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's 13 something. I forget. Anyway, it's like
1270. I think 1273 pops in my head.
Yeah, it's between 1,000 and 1,500. But yeah, I think that math tracks. Actually,
that'd be nice. Okay. Well, I think we're finished on episode number 71.
This was 70.
This was 70. There's some hoopla this morning. Episode 69 went live, and
it was misnumbered.
Well, it was misnumbered first, but that's not. People were really commenting.
We missed an opportunity to make a skyscraper-sized erection joke during episode 69.
Isn't that the funniest thing you could do? Is just not acknowledge the 69 thing as your way of.
Well, I tried to make up for it this episode.
Okay, well, Derek and his enormous skyscraper-sized erection will be back next week on episode number 71 of the Carmudgeon Show, which is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network.
Still, again.
Join us next week when we
clap.